She wasn't even cleared to speak in the ops brief. Just another junior analyst with too many maps and what-ifs. But something didn't sit right. She ran the numbers again and again. And in the final hour, she slipped the revised route into her CO's hand. They followed it, missed the ambush by 7 minutes. And every pilot came home because one woman didn't stay quiet. From which part of the world are you watching this incredible moment of courage today? If you believe that speaking up can save lives even when no one wants to listen, consider subscribing for more stories that prove the quietest voices sometimes carry the most important messages. The pre-dawn darkness enveloped Bagram airfield as the first hints of sunrise began painting the Afghan mountains in shades of orange and gold. Inside the 455th Expeditionary Operations Squadron's intelligence briefing room, fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across metal folding chairs arranged in precise military formation. At 0415 hours, the morning shift was beginning what would become one of the most critical mission planning sessions in the squadron's deployment history, though none of the participants could have anticipated the life-or-death decisions that would unfold over the next few hours. Second Lieutenant Amanda Walsh hunched over her laptop computer in the back corner of the briefing room, surrounded by stacks of intelligence reports, satellite photographs, and communications intercepts that had accumulated throughout the night. At 24 years old with a master's degree in international relations from Georgetown University, Walsh had been recruited into Air Force intelligence based on her analytical capabilities and language skills. But 6 months into her first deployment, she remained relegated to junior analyst duties that rarely involved direct participation in operational planning. The morning's mission board displayed 12 separate sorties scheduled across Afghanistan's most contested airspace, each representing critical support for ground forces engaged in counterinsurgency operations that had been escalating throughout the region. The primary mission, a 12-aircraft formation of A-10 Thunderbolt attack aircraft, would provide close air support for Army units conducting clearing operations near the Pakistan border, an area where intelligence reporting had been frustratingly sparse despite increasing enemy activity. Walsh's workstation resembled a command center in miniature, with multiple monitors displaying real-time intelligence feeds, geographic information systems showing terrain analysis, and communications databases tracking enemy radio intercepts from across the theater. Her analytical process involved synthesizing information from dozens of sources, looking for patterns that might reveal enemy intentions or capabilities that could affect mission planning and aircrew safety. "Ladies and gentlemen, take your seats," announced Major Robert Stevens, the squadron's operations officer, as aircrew members filed into the briefing room, carrying flight gear and mission materials. At 36 years old with over 2,200 flight hours accumulated during 4 combat deployments, Stevens had developed a systematic approach to mission briefings that emphasized thorough preparation and comprehensive risk assessment. The assembled aircrew members represented some of the Air Force's most experienced combat pilots, with collective flight hours exceeding 15,000 and combat experience spanning multiple theaters of operation. Their morning ritual of mission planning had been refined through months of dangerous operations, creating a professional efficiency that balanced operational requirements with survival instincts developed through repeated exposure to combat environments. Today's weather forecast shows clear conditions throughout the area of operations, Stevens began, consulting meteorological data that had been updated throughout the night. Visibility will be unlimited with light winds and temperatures reaching the mid-90s by afternoon. No weather factors are expected to affect flight operations or mission execution. Walsh continued her analysis while Stevens delivered the standard briefing components, but her attention was focused on intelligence patterns that had been developing over the previous 72 hours. Enemy communications intercepts showed unusual activity in several geographic areas, with references to timing and coordination that suggested operational planning rather than routine logistics or defensive positioning. Intelligence overview indicates moderate threat levels throughout our operational areas, Stevens continued, consulting the formal intelligence summary that had been prepared by senior analysts. No significant changes in enemy capabilities or intentions have been identified during the past week. Surface-to-air missile threats remain low, and small arms threats are assessed as manageable through standard evasion procedures. The conventional intelligence assessment reflected analysis that had been conducted using established methodologies and standard threat databases. But Walsh's detailed examination of recent communications intercepts suggested patterns that weren't captured in routine threat assessments. Her specialized focus on linguistic analysis and cultural context had revealed references that other analysts had dismissed as routine communications. Throughout the night, Walsh had been tracking enemy radio communications that included terminology and timing references that seemed to correlate with American flight operations. The intercepts contained phrases in local dialects that, when translated and analyzed in context, suggested advanced preparation for military action rather than defensive measures or routine logistics coordination. Captain Morrison will brief the primary close air support mission, Stevens announced, turning the briefing over to the flight lead who would command the 12-aircraft formation that represented the day's most complex and dangerous operation. Captain Eric Morrison approached the briefing podium with the confidence that came from over 1,600 flight hours in the A-10 Thunderbolt and successful completion of more than 200 combat missions. At 31 years old, Morrison had earned respect throughout the squadron for his thorough mission planning, aggressive flying, and ability to bring all his aircrew members home safely despite the challenging nature of close air support operations. Today's mission provides close air support for the 173rd Airborne Brigade conducting clearing operations in the Khyber Valley, Morrison announced, indicating the target area on a large-scale map display. Intelligence reports indicate moderate enemy resistance with small arms and improvised explosive devices, but no organized air defense capabilities. Walsh studied Morrison's planned route while cross-referencing it against her analysis of enemy communications patterns. The flight path would take the squadron directly through an area where intercepts had shown increased coordination activity, and the timing of their mission corresponded to references that suggested enemy forces were preparing for organized resistance against American aircraft. Our ingress route follows the northern corridor through the Khyber Valley, Morrison continued, tracing the planned flight path with a laser pointer. This approach has been used successfully for the past month without significant incident, and intelligence assessments indicate minimal threat development along the corridor. The route selection was based on operational precedent and recent mission success, but Walsh's analysis suggested that the enemy had been systematically observing American flight patterns and might be preparing to exploit the predictability of repeated route usage. The communications intercepts included specific references to northern flights and timing coordinates that corresponded to typical mission scheduling. Walsh raised her hand tentatively, hoping to share her concerns about the planned route, but Stevens gestured for her to wait until the formal briefing was complete. Military protocol dictated that junior analysts provide written intelligence updates rather than participating in oral mission briefings, and interrupting operational commanders during their presentations was considered a serious breach of procedure. Expected threats include small arms fire from concealed positions and possible improvised explosive devices along vehicle routes, Morrison continued. However, no surface-to-air missile systems have been detected in the operational area, and enemy air defense capabilities are assessed as minimal. The threat assessment reflected standard intelligence analysis that had been validated through recent operational experience, but Walsh's examination of communications patterns suggested that enemy forces had been developing more sophisticated capabilities than conventional assessments indicated. References to sky hunting and timing the birds suggested preparation for organized anti-aircraft operations. As Morrison concluded his route briefing and opened the floor for questions, Walsh attempted again to raise her hand, but Stevens directed the discussion toward routine coordination matters and administrative updates. The formal briefing structure didn't accommodate input from junior analysts who weren't specifically designated as mission briefers or threat assessment specialists. Weapons loadout will be standard for close air support operations, Morrison continued, with 30mm cannon ammunition, Maverick missiles, and general-purpose bombs configured for various target types. Flight time will be approximately 2 hours and 40 minutes, with 30 minutes on station providing direct support to ground forces. The weapons configuration reflected proven effectiveness in similar operations, but Walsh wondered whether the enemy's apparent preparation for organized resistance might require modifications to standard loadouts or tactics. The intercepts had included references to heavy resistance and multiple targets, suggesting that enemy forces might be planning coordinated attacks that exceeded typical small arms threats. Any questions about mission execution or coordination procedures? Morrison asked, scanning the assembled aircrew members. Several pilots raised questions about communication frequencies and target identification procedures, but no one addressed the intelligence concerns that were troubling Walsh. The mission planning appeared comprehensive based on established patterns and recent operational success, creating confidence among aircrew members who had executed similar missions without encountering organized resistance. Lieutenant Walsh, Stevens called as the briefing concluded and aircrew members began departing for their pre-flight preparations. Please submit your intelligence updates through normal written channels. We'll incorporate any new information into future mission planning. Walsh understood that her concerns would be relegated to written reports that might not be reviewed until after the mission was complete. The institutional preference for formal documentation over real-time collaboration meant that critical intelligence might not reach decision-makers when it could affect operational safety and mission success. As the briefing room emptied, Walsh remained at her workstation, continuing to analyze the intelligence data that suggested coordinated enemy preparation for organized resistance. Her linguistic analysis of the intercepts revealed cultural and tactical references that indicated sophisticated planning beyond typical insurgent capabilities, suggesting possible involvement of foreign military advisors or experienced commanders. The communications pattern showed coordination extending over a 4-day period, with references to specific timing, geographic locations, and tactical procedures that demonstrated advanced planning and detailed knowledge of American operational patterns. The enemy appeared to have been conducting systematic observation of flight operations, identifying predictable routes and timing that could be exploited for coordinated attacks. Walsh's analysis indicated that the Northern Corridor route, used successfully for the past month, had become a known pattern that enemy forces were prepared to exploit. The intercepts included references to morning hunting and northern path ambush, terminology that suggested specific preparation for attacking aircraft using the standard approach procedures. Sergeant Rodriguez, Walsh called to Technical Sergeant Maria Rodriguez, the intelligence section's senior enlisted advisor who had been reviewing overnight intelligence updates. I need to show you something concerning about this morning's mission. Rodriguez had 22 years of military experience, including multiple deployments as an intelligence analyst, and had developed expertise in recognizing patterns that indicated emerging threats. Her reputation for thorough analysis and sound judgment had earned respect from both enlisted personnel and officers throughout the squadron. "What have you found, Lieutenant?" Rodriguez asked, approaching Walsh's workstation with the professional attention that she gave to all intelligence matters that might affect operational safety. Walsh displayed her analysis on the main monitor, showing the correlation between enemy communications intercepts and the planned flight route for Morrison's mission. The evidence demonstrated a pattern of coordination that suggested organized preparation for military action rather than routine defensive measures or logistics activities. The intercepts show references to timing and geographic coordinates that correspond to our planned mission, Walsh explained, highlighting the relevant intelligence on her computer display. The terminology suggests they're planning an organized ambush specifically targeting aircraft using the Northern Corridor approach. Rodriguez studied the analysis carefully, noting the linguistic patterns and cultural references that supported Walsh's assessment. Her experience with similar intelligence patterns during previous deployments helped her recognize the significance of the coordination that Walsh had identified. "This looks like legitimate preparation for organized resistance," Rodriguez acknowledged. "Have you briefed this to Major Stevens or Captain Morrison?" "I tried to bring it up during the mission briefing, but junior analysts aren't authorized to participate in operational discussions," Walsh replied. "Protocol requires written reports that get reviewed after missions are complete." Rodriguez understood the institutional barriers that prevented junior personnel from sharing critical information with operational commanders, recognizing that bureaucratic procedures sometimes created communication gaps that could affect mission safety. The formal briefing protocol emphasized rank and position over analytical expertise, creating situations where important intelligence might not reach decision-makers when it was most needed. "We need to get this information to the mission commanders before they launch," Rodriguez said, reviewing Walsh's intelligence summary and route analysis. This assessment could affect aircrew safety and mission success. While Rodriguez attempted to coordinate with senior leadership, Walsh continued developing alternative route recommendations that would avoid the suspected ambush zone while maintaining mission effectiveness. The northern corridor could be modified to include additional waypoints that would take the formation around areas where enemy communications suggested coordinated resistance preparations. The alternative route would add approximately 15 minutes to the mission timeline and require coordination with air traffic control to avoid conflicts with other scheduled operations, but it would bypass the geographic areas where enemy intercepts indicated organized positioning of anti-aircraft assets. The modified flight plan could be implemented without significant changes to mission objectives or aircraft configurations. Major Stevens is in a classified briefing with wing leadership, Rodriguez reported after attempting to locate the operations officer. Captain Morrison has already departed for the flight line to begin pre-flight preparations. The squadron is scheduled to launch in 35 minutes. The timing pressure created urgency around sharing Walsh's intelligence assessment with decision-makers who could authorize modifications to mission planning. Once aircrew members completed their pre-flight procedures and received clearance for departure, changing the route would require significant coordination and might result in mission delays that could affect ground force operations. Walsh gathered her printed intelligence summaries and alternative route recommendations, preparing to approach Captain Morrison directly at his aircraft despite the significant breach of protocol that such action would represent. The potential threat to squadron safety outweighed concerns about following proper channels, and Rodriguez's endorsement provided some institutional support for her initiative. "I'm going to brief Captain Morrison on this intelligence before he launches," Walsh told Rodriguez. "The threat assessment is too significant to wait for normal coordination procedures." "I'll coordinate with Major Stevens as soon as he's available," Rodriguez replied. "Make sure Morrison understands the analytical basis for your concerns." Walsh hurried across the flight line toward the aircraft parking area, where 12 A-10 Thunderbolt aircraft were being prepared for the close air support mission. The morning air was already warm despite the early hour, and the distinctive sound of turbofan engines beginning startup procedures indicated that departure preparations were progressing according to schedule. The A-10 Thunderbolt aircraft represented one of the Air Force's most effective close air support platforms, designed specifically for operations in hostile environments where enemy ground threats required heavily armored aircraft with powerful weapons systems. The aircraft's distinctive twin-engine configuration and straight-wing design provided the low-speed maneuverability and survivability necessary for extended operations in contested airspace. Walsh located Captain Morrison at aircraft tail number 78-0691, where he was conducting his final exterior inspection before climbing into the cockpit for engine startup and systems checks. The sight of a junior intelligence analyst approaching his aircraft during pre-flight preparations was unusual enough to capture his immediate attention and concern. "Lieutenant Walsh," Morrison said, noting her approach with obvious curiosity and some concern about potential maintenance or mission-related issues. "What brings you out to the flight line during pre-flight operations?" "Sir, I need to brief you on intelligence that directly affects today's mission," Walsh replied, her voice carrying the urgency she felt about the potential threat to squadron safety. "I've identified patterns in enemy communications that suggest they're planning a coordinated ambush along your planned route." Morrison paused his pre-flight inspection, recognizing that Walsh's initiative in approaching him directly suggested intelligence of significant importance. Despite the irregular nature of her briefing, his experience with combat operations had taught him that critical information could emerge at any time and from any source within the intelligence community. "Show me what you've found," Morrison said, accepting the maps and intelligence summaries that Walsh had prepared during her analysis. Walsh spread her materials across the wing of Morrison's aircraft, pointing out the correlation between enemy communications intercepts and the squadron's planned flight route. The evidence showed a pattern of coordination that suggested advanced preparation for organized military action rather than routine defensive positioning or logistics activities. The communications intercepts include references to northern birds and timing coordinates that correspond exactly to your planned mission profile, Walsh explained, indicating the relevant intelligence on her printed analysis. The terminology and geographic references suggest they're positioning assets for a coordinated ambush along the northern corridor route. Morrison studied Walsh's analysis while considering the operational implications for his squadron's safety and mission effectiveness. The intelligence pattern was compelling, showing coordination that extended beyond typical insurgent activities and suggested advanced preparation involving multiple enemy units and sophisticated tactical planning. The linguistic analysis indicates cultural references consistent with foreign military advisors, Walsh continued, and the level of coordination suggests capabilities beyond what we've typically encountered in this operational area. Morrison's experience with similar threat patterns during previous deployments helped him recognize the significance of Walsh's analysis and the potential implications for aircrew safety. The combination of coordinated timing, geographic positioning, and sophisticated communication suggested enemy capabilities that exceeded routine intelligence assessments. "What's your recommendation for route modification?" Morrison asked, understanding that Walsh's analysis warranted serious consideration despite its irregular presentation and the potential complications of implementing changes during pre-flight operations. "I've developed an alternative route that avoids the suspected ambush zone while maintaining mission effectiveness," Walsh replied, showing Morrison the modified flight plan she had prepared. "It adds 15 minutes to the mission timeline, but keeps the formation away from areas where enemy communications indicate coordinated resistance preparations." The alternative route demonstrated Walsh's understanding of both intelligence analysis and operational planning, providing a practical solution that addressed the identified threats while maintaining the mission's ability to support ground forces. Morrison appreciated the thoroughness of her preparation and the professional competence she had demonstrated in developing actionable recommendations. "This analysis looks credible," Morrison acknowledged after reviewing the proposed route modification and the intelligence assessment that supported it. "I need to coordinate with my flight leads and get authorization from Major Stevens for implementing the changes." Morrison used his aircraft radio to contact the Squadron Operations Center, requesting priority communication with Major Stevens regarding urgent intelligence updates that could affect mission safety and execution. The coordination required approval from multiple levels of command, but the potential threat to aircrew safety provided compelling justification for last-minute modifications to approved mission planning. Operations Falcon Lead requesting immediate coordination with Major Stevens regarding critical intelligence updates affecting today's mission, Morrison transmitted using secure communication procedures. Falcon Lead Operations Major Stevens is in wing briefings, but we can coordinate urgent operational matters. Please brief the nature of your intelligence concerns. Morrison summarized Walsh's analysis and route recommendations, emphasizing the correlation between enemy communications patterns and the planned flight path. The intelligence suggested organized preparation for coordinated attacks that could threaten squadron safety if the original route was maintained according to existing mission planning. Operations recommend immediate implementation of alternative route based on Lieutenant Walsh's intelligence analysis, Morrison continued. Request authorization for mission modification to avoid suspected threat areas identified through communications intelligence. The radio coordination created awareness of Walsh's intelligence assessment among senior leadership, while emphasizing the operational significance of her findings for aircrew safety. The Squadron Operations Center initiated coordination with Major Stevens and wing leadership to evaluate the proposed route modifications and their implications for mission execution. Falcon Lead, stand by for coordination with Major Stevens. Do not launch until route modifications are approved and coordinated with all participating aircraft. The delay in departure created time pressure for ground forces expecting close air support, but Morrison understood that launching into a potential ambush could result in aircraft losses that would eliminate any possibility of providing effective support. The balance between mission urgency and aircrew safety required careful consideration of all available intelligence. Within 10 minutes, Major Stevens had reviewed Walsh's intelligence analysis and authorized implementation of the alternative route that would avoid the suspected ambush zone. when ready for revised navigation briefing. The response from Morrison's flight leaders was immediate and professional, demonstrating the aircrew's confidence in their commander's judgment and their understanding that route modifications based on intelligence assessments were standard procedures for maintaining operational safety in combat environments. The 12A-10 aircraft departed Bagram Airfield in formation, following Walsh's recommended route that avoided the northern corridor where intelligence analysis had indicated potential ambush preparations. The modified flight plan required additional coordination with air traffic control and extended their transit time, but provided geographic separation from areas where enemy communications suggested coordinated resistance. Walsh remained in the intelligence section, monitoring real-time communications and tracking the squadron's progress along the modified route, while continuing to analyze incoming intelligence that might affect mission execution. Her workstation displayed the aircraft's positions as they transited toward their operational area, confirming that they were following the alternative flight path that avoided the suspected threat zones. The mission proceeded without incident during the transit phase, with no enemy contact reported along the modified route and no indications of hostile activity in areas adjacent to their flight path. The squadron's communication with ground forces confirmed that they were approaching the operational area on schedule despite the route modification and would be able to provide effective close air support. At approximately 0742 hours, exactly 7 minutes after the squadron would have reached the suspected ambush zone using the original northern corridor route, multiple intelligence sources reported intense enemy activity along the planned flight path. Communications intercepts confirmed coordinated attacks involving rocket-propelled grenades, small arms fire, and improvised surface-to-air missiles targeting the airspace where the squadron would have been operating. Multiple hostile contacts reported along the northern corridor route announced the airborne warning and control system operator monitoring the area. Enemy forces are engaging the airspace with coordinated fires. Numerous RPG launches and small arms tracers observed at altitude bands consistent with low-level aircraft operations. The timing and location of the enemy activity provided dramatic confirmation of Walsh's intelligence analysis, demonstrating that insurgent forces had indeed been prepared to execute a coordinated ambush against aircraft following the standard approach procedures. The attack involved sophisticated coordination between multiple enemy units and weapons systems that could have inflicted significant casualties on the squadron. Unmanned aerial vehicles conducting surveillance over the area reported that enemy forces had positioned themselves in concealed locations along the northern corridor, with weapons oriented toward airspace that aircraft would have occupied during normal approach procedures. The ambush site showed evidence of detailed preparation including range cards, communication equipment, and coordinated firing positions. Falcon Lead, be advised that enemy forces are currently engaging your originally planned route with coordinated fires, the operations center transmitted. Lieutenant Walsh's route modification appears to have avoided a significant coordinated ambush. All aircraft continue mission as planned. The confirmation that Walsh's analysis had prevented the squadron from flying into a coordinated ambush created immediate recognition of her contribution to mission safety and aircrew survival. The intelligence assessment had literally saved lives while enabling the mission to continue providing critical support to ground forces. Major Stevens contacted the intelligence section directly to acknowledge Walsh's analytical excellence and professional courage in challenging established procedures to ensure aircrew safety. The success of her threat assessment had prevented potential casualties while validating the importance of encouraging junior analysts to share critical insights with operational commanders. Lieutenant Walsh's intelligence analysis saved the lives of 12 aircrew members today. Stevens announced during the post-mission debrief that would be conducted after the squadron's return. Her attention to detail, analytical expertise, and courage in speaking up prevented what could have been a catastrophic loss of aircraft and personnel. The recognition from senior leadership represented validation of Walsh's analytical capabilities and professional judgment, demonstrating that junior personnel could contribute meaningfully to operational success when their expertise was properly recognized and utilized. The mission success emphasized the institutional value of creating opportunities for all intelligence professionals to share critical insights with decision-makers. Over the following hours, as the squadron successfully completed their close air support mission and returned safely to Bagram Airfield, additional intelligence confirmed the sophistication and coordination of the ambush that Walsh's analysis had helped them avoid. Captured enemy communications revealed detailed planning that had extended over a 6-day period and involved coordination between multiple insurgent groups. The intercepted planning documents showed that enemy forces had been systematically observing American flight patterns, identifying the northern corridor as a predictable route that could be exploited for a coordinated attack. The ambush had been designed specifically to target multiple aircraft simultaneously, using overlapping fields of fire and coordinated timing that could have resulted in significant aircraft losses and aircrew casualties. The enemy had been planning this ambush for almost a week, Rodriguez reported during the intelligence assessment that followed the mission. They had detailed knowledge of our flight patterns, timing, and standard operating procedures. Lieutenant Walsh's analysis identified the threat before it could be executed. The evidence of sophisticated enemy planning validated Walsh's analytical methods while demonstrating the importance of continuous intelligence analysis that looked beyond conventional threat assessments. Her success in identifying the ambush threat had revealed enemy capabilities that exceeded previous assessments and required enhanced vigilance in future operations. General Patricia Martinez, the wing commander, personally recognized Walsh's contribution with a commendation for analytical excellence and professional courage in ensuring mission safety. The recognition ceremony included aircrew members whose lives had been saved by Walsh's intelligence analysis and willingness to challenge established procedures when safety was at stake. Lieutenant Walsh demonstrated the highest standards of intelligence analysis and professional courage, General Martinez observed during the award ceremony. Her refusal to accept conventional assessments when the evidence suggested alternative conclusions exemplifies the analytical excellence that protects our personnel and ensures mission success. Walsh's promotion to first lieutenant was accelerated based on her demonstrated analytical capabilities and leadership potential, with assignment to advanced intelligence training that would prepare her for senior analytical positions throughout the intelligence community. Her success in identifying the ambush threat had established her reputation as an exceptional intelligence professional whose insights warranted institutional recognition and career development. The analytical methods Walsh had developed were incorporated into intelligence training curricula throughout the Air Force, demonstrating how systematic examination of communications patterns and cultural context could reveal enemy intentions that conventional threat assessments might overlook. Her techniques became standard tools for intelligence analysis in combat environments worldwide. Years later, as Lieutenant Colonel Walsh commanded her own intelligence wing, she would emphasize the importance of creating organizational cultures that encouraged all personnel to contribute their analytical insights regardless of rank or position within institutional hierarchies. Her experience had demonstrated that critical intelligence could emerge from any level of the organization when analytical expertise was properly recognized and encouraged. Never assume that your rank determines the value of your analysis, Walsh would tell intelligence officers throughout her career. The most important insights often come from people who are closest to the raw intelligence and willing to challenge conventional assumptions when the evidence supports alternative conclusions. Her leadership philosophy emphasized collaborative intelligence analysis that valued diverse perspectives and created opportunities for all personnel to contribute their expertise when operational safety and mission success were at stake. The approach had been validated through her own experience in identifying threats that senior analysts had missed and preventing casualties through individual initiative and analytical courage. The ambush that Walsh's analysis had helped the squadron avoid was later documented through captured enemy materials that detailed the insurgents' preparation, coordination, and tactical planning. The evidence confirmed her intelligence assessment while demonstrating the sophisticated nature of enemy operational planning and the critical importance of continuous analytical vigilance in combat environments. Her story became an integral part of Air Force intelligence training, illustrating how individual analytical excellence and professional courage could prevent casualties through early identification of emerging threats. The incident emphasized the institutional value of encouraging diverse perspectives and creating communication channels that allowed critical intelligence to reach decision-makers when lives and missions were at stake. The 12 aircrew members who had avoided the ambush through Walsh's analysis completed their deployment successfully, returning home to their families without the casualties that could have resulted from flying into the coordinated attack. Their survival demonstrated the direct impact that effective intelligence analysis could have on operational outcomes and personnel safety in combat environments. Walsh's intelligence analysis had proven that institutional effectiveness required creating opportunities for all personnel to contribute their expertise when critical decisions were being made, and that the courage to challenge established procedures could literally save lives when analytical evidence supported alternative conclusions. Her willingness to speak up had prevented tragedy while transforming organizational approaches to collaborative intelligence analysis. The modified flight route that had avoided the ambush became standard operating procedure for subsequent missions in the area, incorporating Walsh's analytical insights into routine mission planning while maintaining operational security. Her contribution had created lasting improvements in aircrew safety, while validating the principle that effective intelligence analysis required diverse perspectives and open communication throughout all organizational levels.